Okay, welcome to another episode of Sealed for Good, and today we are very privileged to have Russell Clark from Brands in New Zealand, a guest from across the ditch. So welcome Russell, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Phil.
Russell is from Assurance Services, Project Manager at Brands. I'm not going to tell the audience what Brands is, I might let you, they've heard me talk about the Brands system before, but tell us what Brands is, Russell.
Brands stands for the Building Research Association of New Zealand. We were set up in the late 60s for building research and to improve the way buildings are constructed and the way they perform in terms of being easier to heat, healthier, drier, all of the aspects that people want in a house. We started, originally we're based in Wellington, now we've got a campus out at a place called Judgeford. We've got 5 acres out there and we have about 100 staff based there. The biggest percentage of that staff are research scientists. So I think one of our scientists sat down and worked out about a third of our people have a PhD. So got a very, very bright group of...
So we've got a quiz night, I know where to come.
Yeah, that's the place.
Great.
Yeah.
Russell, I came across Brands obviously in the late 90s and early 2000s when the leaking house syndrome was a major issue in New Zealand, and the front pages of the newspapers. I remember sitting down for breakfast at hotels and reading about it and thought, okay, there's an opportunity here.
Yep.
And then realised where the process went from there with waterproof membranes. That was sort of, I think, took on a new piece for Brands because it's been a hot item in that piece of the construction phase now with waterproof membranes and correcting that leaking house syndrome.
Yep.
Maybe just talk about how Brands have been involved in that process and where the improvements have come from.
Yeah, with leaky homes, of course, it became an issue that the government had to step into and provide legislation and rules. Up till then, there were code requirements, which were an overarching general view, but nothing specific. So the government had to come up, especially with the exterior, which was the big one, of ways to do things. And as part of that process, they said this is the acceptable solution. I think in Australia you call it deemed satisfied.
Correct.
This is the way you can do it. But as part of that process, it just specified 2 membranes that were acceptable solutions. That was butyl or EPDM-based membranes. So essentially it didn't outlaw the other membranes, but it said you need to do something else to prove to the city councils who are signing off, or the territorial authorities who are signing off the building consents, that it is an acceptable solution. That's where Brands came in. We had the scientists and we had the technical and we had the ability to develop the criteria, because that was the other factor. There was no criteria. So you as a membrane supplier couldn't have come to me and said, well, what do I need to do? Because it wasn't written down anywhere. So Brands used its science and its scientists to develop the criteria by where we could then take any products, any membrane product, and say, okay, this is one of these, it goes in here, this is what you need to do to make sure that you are an acceptable solution and the councils or the territorial authorities can use that product with confidence.
And that would issue a product, an appraisal, a Brands appraisal, and basically from my understanding in the New Zealand market, the business we've done over the last 12, 15 years has been that when you've got a Brands appraisal, architects will specify Brands appraised membranes. Councils are not going to pass in, it's not Brands appraised to be able to be submitted for building.
Yep.
And applicators have got no choice but to use a Brands appraised system. So essentially you've shrunk, or you've bottlenecked the market in terms of who can get into that stage of being an acceptable product to be used.
Yeah, you can use products, and people still do, that aren't Brands appraised, but you have to spend a lot more time convincing the people that are going to sign off on the consent that it is an acceptable product. With the Brands appraisal, the hard work's all been done for the councils, so they can say, cool, it's got a Brands appraisal, that means it's going to work in this building, we can carry on and look for the next things we've got to check.
Well, I know with our people in New Zealand, we've never come across a case where a council will accept a non-Brands appraised membrane. I'm talking about wet area membranes or external wet area membranes, because the risk then lies with them instead of using something that's not appraised.
Yeah, that was one of the other big shifts, is the risk got shifted away from the suppliers back to the council. If you are approving this product on that building, then you're saying it's fit for purpose or it will deem to satisfy.
Mm-hmm.
They then realise, of course, we need someone else to tell us that it's fit for purpose. Otherwise, we're taking a risk, and that's what Brands does. We tell them that that product is fit for the use, or the system, really. We don't do many products, everything is a system.
Mm-hmm.
Is going to do and perform the function that you want it for, and it's going to do it for the amount of time that's required, because the other thing, of course, it's about the durability of these systems.
And that's music to my ears when you said the word system, because we've been very hot on pushing that. Too many times in my experience over the last 30 years I've seen where failures happen. Sometimes it's not always the quality of the product, but it comes unstuck because it's not part of a system.
Absolutely.
And that's where, you know, it's then the he said, she said issue, and you spend more time trying to, you do, you know, investigative research into where it's gone wrong. Whereas from what I've seen of Brands since we've been involved there, and you guys have brought that through, compared to the noise I hear in our markets here,
Mm-hmm.
it's nothing of that volume. And I'm talking per capita. You know, people I think in Australia underestimate how big the Auckland market is in terms of buildings that go on.
Yep.
And obviously, you know, all the things that happen in Christchurch and the way that's been rebuilt, etc. Because it's not just waterproofing, but that's the piece I want to focus on. But what I've seen in New Zealand is that when you go on your website, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and you see all the appraised products,
Yes.
you type in wet areas and you see those, there's not the volume of products we've got in Australia, because the fact is there's a compliance
Yeah.
that you've got to have. And so can I just go, and correct me if I'm wrong here, so products like ourselves, Gripset's got a couple of membranes that are appraised over New Zealand.
Yes.
We do the test. You can either do the tests at Brands Laboratories, or we can submit tests from a NADA laboratory that's accepted by Brands to appraise.
Correct.
You've got a few other unique things you need for the New Zealand market, but then it doesn't stop there, does it? Annually, what do you then require?
Well, annually we do a cut down version of what we did at the appraisal time. So we're not just interested in the test report. The test report, as we and you and I both discussed, is just a snapshot in time. It's a one moment. It's not talking about the product made before or the product made afterwards. So with the appraisal, we're looking at the quality of the manufacture. We're looking at the fact that it can be installed, you've got technical information, everything else, as well as the physical performances. So at revalidation time, we redo that. So we reconfirm that the technical information is still accurate. We go and visit sites so we can see that what you say people are supposed to do with your system, they are doing. And is why I'm here today, is one of the factors, is to audit your manufacturing facility to ensure that the product you're making now is still as good as the product that we appraised back. In fact, I was just trying to think, with the Gripset products, it goes back 12...
We were one of the pioneers,
Yeah.
2002 I think.
2002, yeah,
There you go.
was the first time it was appraised. And since then, and that's the other factor, is an appraisal has a finite life. It has 5 years, and at 5 years we go and reissue the whole appraisal. So we go through everything again just to make sure things haven't changed. The idea being, from our territorial authorities' perspective, is they know that any time they look or use a product, that appraisal there's been a full amount of work done on it, at least within the last 12 months, as opposed to, you know, it was issued 2002, it hasn't been looked at since.